Ash, let's just get straight into this. Has the Poly Network hacker returned the funds?
Well, that is the key question right now, Elaine. And as we record this right now, the hacker has returned about $5 million of about $600 million taken. The question is whether they will return it all. I think that's very much an open question. News broke that a security firm that's been researching this story claims that they have the IP address of the alleged hacker in this case. So now that that information has become public, one wonders if they are going to go dark. Obviously, the overwhelming majority of those funds are still missing, Elaine.
Now, I want to get to my next question is, can you explain to me the size of this attack on the Poly Network?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the short answer is it's big. It's around $600 million US. Let me just read to you what some of the itemized lines here. It's 270 million stolen on the Ethereum blockchain, 250 million on the Binance Smart Chain network, and $84 million on the Polygon network. This is from wallet addresses published by the Poly Network on Twitter. You know, just for some context here, Elaine, there have been other very large hacks in the past. Just to frame this up for you a little bit, the Japanese exchange CoinCheck was hacked in 2018 for nearly $500 million. Qcoin, based in Singapore, was hacked in 2020 for $300 million. And of course, Mt. Gox, back in 2014, hacked for just under $500 million, but it was nearly 7% of the Bitcoin in existence at the time, which would be worth a staggering $60 billion today. Now, again, these are exchange hacks that we've mentioned, things on that scale, the $100 million plus scale. This is by far the largest DeFi, pure play DeFi hack of all time. There's some crypto intelligence out there from a firm called CipherTrace that has said 75% of all crypto attacks hit the DeFi protocols. How does that happen? How is it possible that you can have the largest hacks on the exchanges while the dollar volume is higher on DeFi? The short answer, Elaine, is that it's numerous smaller attacks, things like the Yearn flash loan attack, but that was only around $11 million. But there have been a whole series of those types of hacks in the past, Elaine.
What actions can be done when a size of this attack happens?
Well, you know, that's a great question. And the answer really is it depends. It depends on the protocol that's involved. In the case of the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack, which obviously wasn't a hack, but a ransomware exchange, Colonial Pipeline paid, I believe it was $5 million. Law enforcement was able to recover $2.3 million, so nearly half. But again, it depends on the exact circumstances of the attack. It depends on the protocol, and it depends obviously on the leads that law enforcement and the protocols themselves have. So it's a diverse array of opportunities. They all really need to be considered individually on their own merits, Elaine.
So, Ash, tell me a little bit, just who and what is the Poly Network, and what do they have to say about all of this?
Well, you know, the Poly Network is a DeFi network. It was created by the founder of the Chinese blockchain Neo. It runs on Binance Smart Chain, Ethereum, and Polygon blockchains. Basically, Poly acknowledged that this was the biggest DeFi hack of all time, and they asked the hackers to give the money back. So we'll have to see. It's strange that, perhaps they have given $5 million back. That's an unusual development, I guess one could say. And it sort of raises some questions about who they were, what their intentions were. Is this, I don't think I've ever heard of a traditional bank heist or bank robbery, giving money back. It's a really interesting space. One wonders what's happening. We can only speculate right now. Obviously, this story is very much breaking, developing, still unfolding, and something that we're watching very closely, Elaine.
And what a story. So I want to take it even bigger than this. So I want to ask you, how has the DeFi industry responded to this attack?
Well, in the short term, there's not a whole ton that they can do. CZ, the CEO of Binance, pointed out that nobody controls the Binance Smart Chain. Nobody controls Ethereum. Of course, this was all posted by CZ on Twitter. And he went on to add that they are working with their security partners to assist however they can. But he acknowledges, and I quote, "There are no guarantees." Again, this is a decentralized space, as CZ points out. This is controlled by no one. It is open source. This is a different mindset for people who have been involved, for example, in the traditional finance space and TradFi. This is something that can't be controlled by individuals or even the large companies that create these protocols, Elaine.
Some really big crypto advocate name that you mentioned there. So before I let you go, I do want to sort of ask you, this doesn't come at a great time for cryptocurrency, especially at a time when Washington, D.C. is trying to figure out how to regulate crypto. How much of a setback will this be for blockchain innovation for people who are pro and anti-crypto?
Well, this is a really terrific question that you ask, Elaine. I think it's almost a kind of a political Rorschach test. And there are actually multiple positions for this. You would imagine that folks who are opposed to cryptocurrency, those who think it's a conduit for money laundering and terrorism, for example, and for those who think that investors need to be protected, will use it as an example of precisely that. It will become the new poster boy for all of the reasons why crypto needs to be regulated in the view of those who are opposed to it, or at least skeptical of it. I suspect that folks who are more supportive of crypto will say the things that they often say, which is it's early, there is risk. You'll see people in the DeFi space saying similar things in the days and weeks to come. You could say, for example, 30,000 people die every year from automobile accidents, but we don't stop driving. We don't live in fear. We don't live in our houses. And they will talk about how much this idea is worth implementing. In other words, how important they feel DeFi especially is to financial sovereignty, to financial innovation, to expanding access to the banking system. And I suspect that they will say that it's going to get better. Again, this is extremely early. This is something that is still in the kind of beta phase, to use a computer term. This is something that we will have to look at. By the way, I would say people who are responsible in the DeFi space will point out that individuals very much need to be careful. And I suspect they'll talk about things like asset allocation, individual risk tolerance, and the need for people to really understand what they're investing in. And finally, Elaine, I'd add one other thing, if that's okay. I think that there's a third position here, which is what Bitcoiners will say. Bitcoiners, interestingly enough, will probably be saying, I told you so. They believe that the DeFi space is rife with scams and security flaws. They will say it happens all the time. The Bitcoin position is often, thou shalt have no other gods before me. I don't want to make light of it because it's a serious and principled position that people who are Bitcoiners have, but that's basically the sentiment. They will say the things that they often say, not your keys, not your coin, not your keys, not your cheese. The idea being in the Bitcoin space that DeFi is something that is seen as very speculative, very high risk, and they believe that Bitcoin is the asset of the past, of the present, of the future, and they believe in individual sovereignty around ownership of Bitcoin. So, you'll see all of these different views, probably many different permutations of this, blended with politics of various stripes. And there's probably some value to be gained from all of those points of view, understanding the richness, the nuance. And that's exactly what we're here to do at Real Vision, to have that conversation. And finally, I would add, creators are going to continue creating, and the hackers are probably going to continue hacking.
Well, on that note, some great points you made there. And like you said, a lot more to come on Real Vision. Thank you for the conversation today, Ash.
Thanks for having me, Elaine.